Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. If you could just have one friend subscribe, we could literally double this thing. If one friend subscribed every day, we'd reach our goal in who knows. Anyway, it'd be awesome if we could reach 1,000 people because then we could give charity. And certainly, during the time of COVID, everybody needs a little extra help now and again. I hope you and your loved ones are doing well during this time. And if you don't have anyone in your life that you're feeling is supporting you in the way that you would hope, hopefully you find that support network soon. In any event, this is a time at which people are kind of ill at ease with each other right now. And so, becoming more likable, becoming more approachable, and finding ways to connect with each other is more important than ever before. We've got political divides and racial divides and divides about attraction and love and sexuality and religion and all sorts of things. And it's really sad because whether we realize it or not, we are one universe and we are one people and we have one planet. And so the more we get along with others, the better quality of life we're going to have. And so there are some tricks and ways, especially for younger people and even people in their mid-age, that they can kind of make themselves more approachable and likable. And they're really simple things to do. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the more support you have, the less alone you feel. And if you don't feel alone, you're more likely to hit your goals. And so it's just really useful and helpful and beneficial to find ways to be more likable. And so one of the first things to do is use people's name when you first meet them or when you're engaging with them and getting to know them. Obviously, when we get to know somebody, it's like, hey, how you doing, buddy, and friend, and champ, and we can have nicknames for people and nicknames for partners and nicknames for our best friend and inside jokes and all sorts of things. But when you're first meeting a person, hey you just doesn't sound nearly as good as hey Bob. And so when we use a person's name, we're doing two things. We're showing that we listened well enough to know what their name is. And secondly, we're showing that we value them among other people in a way enough to learn their name, commit it to memory, and use it. And so when a person hears their name, they perk up. Imagine your dog or your cat. When you call your dog or your cat, he or she tilts their head, and then they come running or walking or sprinting, depending on how excited they are, to see you over. And that's because even in the animal kingdom, they identify with their name. Human beings are much the same. And so, unfortunately, hey dude, hey buddy, it doesn't have the same effect as using a person's name. And so if you're trying to deepen bonds, that's super important. The next is compliments. So it's easy to compliment somebody, but being genuine with a compliment may not be so easy. A lot of times people are like, oh, shucks, you don't really mean that. But if you go out of your way to give a detailed compliment, now notice I didn't say long. I really like your green sweater versus I really like your sweater. Or, I like what you did with your hair. How'd you do that? In other words, if you give a compliment and then ask a question, you're inviting the building of rapport. Now, a lot of people say, you look nice today. The end. Well, you didn't give a descriptor. You didn't say how. So anyone can throw out a platonic, generalized compliment. But if you're serious and you give a genuine compliment, preferably with a genuine smile and just a nod in their direction, a person's going to feel like, wow, they really noticed something about me and it matters to them. Now, obviously, you can't do that every time you see someone because then it comes off not genuine. But even if you did it every second time or every third time you saw somebody and it was a different compliment every time, you're going to build rapport with them without even necessarily them realizing it, just because at the end of the day, people like to hear good things about themselves, right? And so the next thing is if you say you want to start a friendship with somebody or get to know somebody or start a romantic relationship or start a book club or whatever, make the time to actually build that bond. Now, that bond could be built over email. It could be built by phone. It could be built in person, preferably in person, because there are things that we can't get over the phone or over the internet, like body language and other things. But if we don't have time to do that, certainly, during the early stages of getting to know someone, putting time in virtually is fine. But at the end of the day, if you don't have time to spend 10 minutes checking in with somebody at least a few times a week, then you probably don't have time to get to know them. And to say that you intend to get to know them and then pull that away, a lot of people get very anxious about that and they become very uncomfortable. And some people who've been through a lot of trauma might even feel ghosted. So don't overextend yourself to the point where, I'm going to get to know 27 people and you only have time to do three. Be selective, but at the same time, follow through and put the time into building those relationships. The next thing is admit your flaws in a believable way. So, I'm so bad at X is probably not the good way to admit your flaws, because putting oneself down and self-deprecation, self-deprecating humor, and all of that, it's fun in the beginning, but there's no relatability there. We can have a chuckle, we can have a laugh, but we don't really get to know a person's deeper thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But if somebody says, "Hey, I'm really bad at math," and you look at them and you go, "You know what? I'm really struggling with balancing my checkbook," or "I'm really struggling with time management," and I get you, I understand, and you admit, I'm not good at, while I'm not good at time management, another thing I'm not good at, I'm not good at tying my shoes. Whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily matter what it is, as long as it's genuine and you admit to being less than perfect. A lot of times people are afraid to, for example, speak in public or give a presentation because they're afraid to say the wrong thing. And one of the reasons that my audios are all direct to stream is because I want to feel, and I want people listening to feel, that I'm approachable. I could easily edit things and never make a flub and never cough because of the throat injury I have and never do any of those things, but that doesn't make me relatable. That doesn't make me human. It makes me processed and plastic and like most of Hollywood, and that's not the person I want to be. And so, for me, that's my flaws. They stay in the recording. And I think the more we become comfortable with that, all of us are flawed and all of us have strengths that other people couldn't knock out of the park, and all of us have weaknesses we'd rather not deal with. And the more balanced we look at ourselves, the easier it gets to build meaningful relationships. And the next thing, and this is second to last, but the next thing is just kindness. Give and be willing to receive kindness. So it could be something as simple as holding the door for a little old lady, or buying a kid a $5 sucker if it's appropriate with their and acceptable to their parent, or taking the time to go pet a dog that's whining, as long as the dog isn't aggressive or whatever. But be kind, but also watch for other people to be kind. If you want kind people in your life, approaching someone who's just done a small act of kindness and saying, "Hey, I know you didn't do it for this, but I really admire, that you helped that person," or "Hey, I really admire that you took the time to slow down and let that person who's struggling to walk pass you by," or whatever the case is. When we acknowledge kindness and generosity, we encourage the behavior and the energy we want to see in the world. And so when we do that, it's easier to build bonds as, "Hey, we'd like to all live in a better quality of world. That's awesome." And this person saw that I'm trying to make a difference in that way. The last thing is active listening and active speaking. So most people know what active listening is, but crash course really quickly. Active listening is you're actively involved in the process of listening to another person without the motive of trying to figure out what you're going to say next. So you're fully engaged. You're hearing what they're saying. You're hearing the things they're not saying, the subcontext. But also, active speaking is you're being deliberate about what you say. People can often speak a lot about things that they aren't very knowledgeable about, or where they just want to get attention. But active speaking is actually picking, "Hey, I hope you take this the right way, and I'm meaning this with all sincerity, but ABC." Or, "Hey, I really appreciate that you said this, and I feel this way, and we have this in common, so we should talk more." The more you actively speak and actively listen and use language for its intended purpose of connection and communication, the easier it is to build relationships. So hopefully this audio has been helpful to you. There's over 360 for you to check out. Variety of topics. Please keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.